Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. My name is Jacob Edens. Today we're going to be talking about what is an affirmation. So when you look at affirming, what you are doing, right, is you're repeating a thought form with a vibratory frequency. So you're repeating, I am this, I am so happy and grateful that, I am doing this, I am doing that. And your primary focus is to have it on loop, kind of like a subliminal, right? You're repeating it over and over and over and over again. So when you are in need of something, right, and you start to affirm, hey, I am this, that which I currently don't have, what you're doing is you're basically putting in a new state of being into a current existed occupied state of being. So when you do that at first, right, the state of being within which you occupied is chronic, or else it wouldn't have gotten to the point that you don't want it. So if you have an unwanted frequency, if you have an unwanted state of being that follows you around like a cloud, and you've been building that up for 20, 30 years of just habitual reinforcement, when you change the pattern, you're putting a drop into a very big pond if you just do it one time, right? So when you think of an affirmation, what you're really doing is you're putting in a seed into the ground. And every time you feel that feeling and couple it with that thought, what you're doing is you're basically putting a vote for your new chronic experience. So in the beginning, what happens is you start to affirm or do something repeatedly that is in alignment with your new state of being, your new wanted state of being. And when you continually do that, what happens is it starts to shift a small portion of you, right? And especially if you're using an I am affirmation, what you're doing is you're identifying with that thing exclusively. So say you're 100% here. And you start saying, I am rich, and 100% of you is poor, and you've been fucked for your entire life, right? When you start to put in, I am rich, what happens is the small part that you're putting into your subconscious that you're identifying with is now at odds with 100%, right? And what your goal is every time you drop feed that thought with the emotion, it's rippling out to 100%. It's rippling out to 100%. It's rippling out. It's becoming more dominant and more dominant. And what happens is this old frequency essentially is like, hey, man, we're going to die if we don't do something. So what it does is it basically puts all of these different indicators up that are like, do you still love me? And when you go through that disciplinary process, it's like you're forging it with a hammer, right? You're hitting it over and over and over again. I am this. I am so happy and grateful this. It's not because a certain amount of those is going to make you get the thing. It's not because those are going to make it happen faster. What you're doing is you're disciplining and focusing your mind to a single point. And you're hammering that over and over again with emotion, and you're rehearsing it like a guitar chord, right? When I learned the chord G on guitar, I do a ridiculous amount of G's, and I play with where my fingers are, I play with how hard I strum, I play with all of these different aspects of performance, because for me to do it effectively at a mastery level, and additionally, for me to be able to do it the way that I want to, where it's fun for me to do all the time, I need to perfect that chord strike. So when I have an affirmation and I'm not something, but I'm claiming this because now I am that thing, but 100% of my awareness has been on being not that thing, now that singular affirmation, if it's simple, is easy enough to focus on to where I can drown out all of the other unwanted things, right? So when you think of an affirmation and the repetitive nature of it, what you're doing is you're just hammering that into your subconscious dominantly. And when you focus on one thing, you ignore everything else, and that's how you destroy your old frequency. So if you can focus on one thing that is wanted as if you were the person who has it now, and you can use that as just your focal point to just reorient over and over and over and over and over again. what'll happen is you'll become so good at that affirmation, so good at repeating that thought form, that now when you slack off, your mind will prefer to go to that thought pattern because it's more dominant and practiced. When you have unconscious moments throughout your day, that's when shit sneaks up on you. That's when the 10 years of bad mental habits, because they're so enticing, because they have no resistance, will just slide right back into your mind. But if you're on it 24/7 with positive affirmation of who you are, why you have the things that you want, and why everything is working, and you chronically stack that throughout the day, what will happen is that will now become easier to think than the old patterns. But what happens is in the beginning, you start to think those new patterns, and it creates the illusion that nothing's happening. As soon as you say that affirmation, that energy has been sent out, and it will have a response. But in that time delay, there's a chronic reality that has been stabilized on you affirming what you didn't want, and it has built up momentum as well. So when you hyper-focus in on one thing and you say, I am this, and you do it for a week or two, and you're like, am I going crazy? Nothing's happening. Like, what am I doing this for? Nobody else is doing this. I'm the only person doing this. I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket to see if this works. That's normal. Because what happens is you're overcoming that old frequency. And that old frequency is 100% dependent on your attention to it. So what does it do? It tries to get your attention. So when you refocus your attention onto a singular affirmation, not only are you practicing that thought so that it's easier and easier to think. Like if you have a programming system in a computer, right? You have your hardware, which is your computer, your body's your hardware, your mind is your software. So every time you affirm something with a mental type of position, you are making that circuitry in your brain easier to wire and fire, meaning that it's more readily available information. And if you can think a conscious thought, the thing about thoughts is that if you hold them for 17 seconds or more, they magnetize other thoughts to them. So the dominant thoughts that you have rooted in your mind, if you can have those assumptions be really, really favorable, and they're the easiest thoughts to think because you've rehearsed them a ton, now the core bedrock of your mindset is built in such a way that you have a massive safety net in terms of your creative power. Because if my baseline assumption is always, dude, everything works out for me, it's all good, and I truly can think that easier than a panicking thought, guess where my default goes to in every single situation? Every single thing that is kind of not the way I want it, my bedrock assumption is now just, oh, that's okay. That's just part of how it's going to unfold because I always get what I want. See what I'm saying? Like that thought has so much gravity if it's dominant, and that's the true belief. Like it just bulldozes. It's incompatible with any other type of thought form that may be inaccurate. So when you think thought forms, what you're doing is you're doing two things. Number one, you're making those thoughts easier to think. You're also saturating that 100% of the being to be in the same frequency alignment that you want it to be in. So by aligning yourself with that new version, saying, I am this, old version is out here, it's going to try and get you, no, I am this. And then as you continually affirm that, it will start to build out momentum and fill to that 100%. And the opposite reality will get weaker and weaker and weaker. So when you go through this process of doing these things, you just have to remember that it takes repetition because the reality that you built took years to ingrain. So you're just riding that wave out. But the good news is that the new reality in which you put your emphasis and your mental focus is going to gain the same momentum in the same way that this unwanted reality is going to mess with you to try to get your attention. The reality with the foundation of everything's going good and I'm in my dream life, etc., whatever your dream, vision, or goal is, will fight with the same tenacity to make you see how good things are. And it will go, oh, you had something happen today? Well, don't you remember the 5 good things that happened? Because before going through this process, our minds are gravitating towards negative things. So your mind just recalls 5 shitty things. And you're like, well, oh, I guess the world is horrible, right? But once you start to replace that with all good ammunition of why you can do things and why things are amazing, now you've got this infinite Rolodex hyper-intelligent computer system that's just saying, hey man, you're good, keep going. Hey man, you're good, keep going. Everything's going to work out. Hey man, and it's just positively reinforcing you 24/7, 365 days a year. So that, in my perspective, is why affirmations are important. I don't think robotic affirming is just to check off a box. I think it's to refine your focus and your ability to put your attention on a singular thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you get the job done. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you want coaching, click the link in the bio. Other than that, go conquer.